Cabinet met and, as usual, started with an update on Zimbabwe's response to the COVID-19 outbreak. Cabinet received an update on the country's response to COVID-19 outbreak, and this was presented by the Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Innovation, Science and Technology Development as Deputy Chairperson of the Ad Hoc Interministerial Task Force on COVID-19. As of 20 September 2021, Zimbabwe's cumulative COVID-19 cases stood at 127,938, with 120,946 recoveries and 4,567 deaths. The recovery rate stood at 95%, with 99% of cases being attributable to local transmission. As we stand, active cases in the country stand at 2,425. This week, the number of cases recorded went up to 1,669. The education sector contributed significantly to this increase. Government has therefore instituted the following measures to contain the COVID-19 surge in schools. 1. Enhancement of surveillance and contact tracing at schools and the surrounding communities. 2. Increasing on-site COVID-19 testing of all suspected cases, contacts, and surrounding communities. 3. Isolation and management of all COVID-19 positive cases. And 4. Quarantining of those exposed. 5. Restriction of movement into and out of the affected schools until the outbreaks have been controlled. And 6. Enhancement of public health and social protocols, including social distancing, hand washing, sanitization, and wearing of face masks. And 7, empowering teachers to detect and report suspected cases. 8, enhancement of awareness campaign in schools and surrounding communities. And finally, 9, vaccination of all eligible populations in schools and also in surrounding communities. Cabinet, however, noted that out of a total school enrollment of 4.6 million, the number of COVID-19 positive cases detected is insignificant. All cases are being well managed in line with the standard guidelines for the coordinated prevention and management of COVID-19 at all learning institutions. And then furthermore, most cases among learners are asymptomatic or actually have only mild symptoms. Accordingly, Cabinet resolved that schools will remain open and learners who are isolated will be provided with alternative learning platforms. Cabinet is pleased to advise that cases in areas previously declared hotspots decreased over the last 21 days and continue declining. And this is due to effective COVID-19 control measures and protocols which have been put in place by government. Treasury has also consistently provided the much needed financial resources for the mitigation measures, with about 34.2 billion Zimbabwe dollars having been availed so far. These measures have, in general, seen a sustained decrease in the number of people in need of hospitalization for COVID-19, with the country's hospital bed occupancy rate decreasing from 6.9% the previous week to 5.6% this week. Then we'll move on to the progress report on the procurement and rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. The Vice President and Minister of Health and Childcare, Honorable CGDN Chiwenga, apprised Cabinet on progress made in the procurement and rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. Cabinet advises the nation that as of 19 September 2021, a total of 2.9 million people had received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine and about 2,065,000 their second dose. This is across the country. This translates to a national coverage of 34.7% for the first dose and 24.3% for the second dose. Of special note is that the city of Bulawayo is now at 52.6% for the first dose and 40.3% for the second dose, and that it's edging towards herd immunity, along with Matabeleland North, where Victoria Falls has already surpassed herd immunity. Cabinet wishes to further inform citizens that 1 million doses of Sinovac vaccines were received on the 14th of September 2021. This brings the total number of vaccine doses received since rollout of the vaccination program to 11.8 million. And we received a report on the wheat flour producer price for the 2021 agricultural marketing season. Cabinet considered and approved proposals for the upward review of the producer price of wheat, and this was presented by the Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Settlement, Honorable Dr. Anxious Masuka, as the acting chairperson of the Cabinet Committee on Food Security and Nutrition. The nation is being informed that following a successful wheat season, Zimbabwe is anticipating a volume of more than 300,000 metric tons of wheat against a national annual requirement of 360,000 metric tons. This is on the backdrop of the current national wheat stocks which we have at the moment, which stand at 70,000 metric tons, making Zimbabwe wheat self-sufficient for the first time ever since 2005. Following extensive consultations with various stakeholders, including Farmers Union, Cabinet has approved an upward review of the wheat flour producer price to 55,517.69 Zimbabwe dollars per metric ton for ordinary grade wheat. This is at a 15% return on investment, and 66,621.22 Zimbabwe dollars per metric ton for premium grade wheat during the 2021 marketing season. This will enable farmers to go back into production. The upward review of the producer prices is being necessitated by changes in input prices, which in turn resulted in higher production costs. Farmers expect viability in their operations and are grappling with cost increases. Labor, for example, 51%, fertilizers, both compound D and ammonium nitrate, 27%, tractor and equipment, 144%. The input increases have a net effect of 32% increase on the total variable cost per hectare. The net contribution of inputs to total wheat production costs in 2021 is as follows: labor 3.19%, seed 5.14%, fertilizers 26%, chemicals 20%, and operations 12.37%. And the biggest cost driver is cost of borrowing, which stands at 40%. A viable producer price will obviously incentivize farmers, and the GMB has made adequate preparations for the 2021 wheat intake. Additionally, government will avail requisite funds to pay for deliveries. The harvesting of the wheat is expected to commence this week and should be completed by mid-November 2021. The nation is also informed that the current subsidy framework to millers will be maintained. Then we'll move on to the principles of the Electronic Transactions and Electronic Commerce Bill. Cabinet considered and approved the principles for the Electronic Transactions and the Electronic Commerce Bill, which was presented by the Minister of Information, Communication, Technology, Postal and Courier Services, Honorable Dr. Jennifer Muswere. The nation is being informed that the development of information communication technologies in cyberspace requires that the legal and policy environment be adapted to take into account the relevant changes. In particular, there is need for a holistic electronic transaction regulation regime in the face of the opening up of markets and movement of goods and services across borders, and growing incidences of scams and unfair practices which leave the end user at risk. The Electronic Transactions and the Electronic Commerce Bill will therefore first and foremost attune the country's legal framework to technological changes by addressing the current deficiencies in most of the country's existing laws, which were designed for paper-based transaction, which is no longer the case. The bill will promote and advance the business environment in Zimbabwe by establishing a legislative framework that enables fair, accessible, responsible, and sustainability online transacting. The bill will, in whole or in part, consolidate and harmonize existing electronic transactions, related legislation such as Consumer Contracts Act Chapter 8.03. The key issues provided for by the bill are the use and regulation of electronic contracts and electronic transactions. The bill will establish a predictable, accessible, safe, and transparent online trading environment which is necessary for e-commerce to flourish. It will also result in business innovation while simultaneously empowering consumers supported by well-resourced, effective, and efficient regulatory institutions. The Cabinet then received another report on the activities to mark the SADC Anti-Sanctions Solidarity Day, which is on the 25th of October 2021. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Honorable F.M. Shao, briefed Cabinet on the theme and program of activities for this year's SADC Anti-Sanctions Solidarity Day to be held on 25th of October 2021. The nation will recall that the 39th SADC Summit held in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in August 2019 designated 25th of October of each year as the region's day of solidarity with Zimbabwe against the illegal sanctions imposed by some Western nations. While over the years individual countries had supported Zimbabwe in calling for the removal of the sanctions, the anti-sanctions drive by SADC as a region over the past 2 years has rallied more support for the country, even from non-SADC countries. Taking note of His Excellency, the President's declaration that Zimbabwe, and I quote, Zimbabwe is a friend to all and an enemy to none, unquote. The theme for this year's Anti-Sanctions Solidarity Day is, quote, friend to all, enemy to none, forging ahead and enhancing innovation and productivity in adversity of sanctions, unquote. The activities to mark the day will be headlined by His Excellency, the President's keynote address, which will be broadcasted live across all media platforms. The negative impact of the sanctions on ordinary Zimbabweans will be highlighted through testimonies from affected businesses and other population groups, including women, the youth, and vulnerable groups across all socio-economic sectors. The programs will be broadcast on all media platforms throughout the month of October, climaxing on 25th of October 2021. The activities will also include engagements of the diaspora, diplomatic corps, and SADC missions. Media briefings, interviews, and webinars by Zimbabwean ambassadors in their areas of accreditation will be conducted, while statements on the sanctions will be delivered during bilateral and multilateral meetings. Buoyed by this solidarity towards Zimbabwe's cause, Cabinet calls upon all Zimbabweans to play their part in highlighting our plight, given that our friends are in full support of our initiatives towards self-emancipation and attainment of our set Vision 2030. Zimbabwe remains committed to engage and re-engage in its relations with the international community. Then Cabinet had an update on the 2021 Zimbabwe International Trade Fair. Cabinet wishes to advise the nation that the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, ZITF, kicked off in Bulawayo today with local and international exhibitors participating. A number of high-level engagements will be held at the fair, including the Calendar International Business Conference, which will be led tomorrow by the Vice President and Minister of Health and Child Care, Honorable CGDN Chiwenga. The fair will be officially opened by His Excellency the President, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, on Thursday, 23rd September 2021. I thank you for listening. That brings us to the end.